Hey, what's going on guys? It's me, Aiden. Welcome back to another video. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Aiden. I'm a college freshman. I'm currently studying Japanese education in college. Now, I'm actually self-taught up to Genki 2. So I thought before I got into, because the semester's just starting, so I thought before I got into a formal class setting, let's go ahead and make a video talking about my tips for beginners for self-learners, because that's what I've been doing over the past few years. Didn't take it in high school because my high school did not offer the language. So I thought that, just like all those other videos, right? I'm sure everybody who has a YouTube channel who's studying Japanese has probably made one of these videos at some point, but I am not those people. I am myself. So I thought maybe I'd have some separate things on my list that was unique to me. These are just things that I have learned that I wish that I had known as I was starting out, or just like tips that if I could go back in time, I would tell myself these. So I don't know, like I said, I'm sure you've seen tons of these videos. So whether you're just, starting out, you have no idea where to start, or if you were like me who, was learning and then it's just like, oh, another one of these videos popped up into my recommended. Let's just go ahead and click on this because for some reason we're into those. If you're like me. It just happens, I don't understand. But I do have 6 things that I'm gonna go down based on, I guess importance, maybe? I don't know. They're all important in their own ways, but I just thought I would share them with you. So let's go ahead and hop right into number 1, possibly the most important thing. Now that number 1 thing is, it gets better. I know when you're first starting out, you have no idea where to start. You're like, oh my gosh, there's 3 language systems or writing systems. What do? I don't know what's going on. And then you're like, oh shoot, just learned hiragana. That's pretty good. We're making good progress. So it does seem like a lot at first, right? Like, oh man, I don't know what's going on with hiragana. Then you learn hiragana and then you're all good. And then you're like, oh shoot, it's grammar time and I have no idea what I'm doing. So you'll see it goes in this, I have no idea what I'm going. It's good, it's hard, it's good. So it goes up and down, and that's true no matter what level you are, right? Like I said, I'm self-studied up to Genki 2. I'm currently starting Tobira, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, Tobira is a completely different textbook from Genki. I'm confused. I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm telling myself it's gonna get better. So just keep that in the back of your head. Know that no matter how hard it seems right now, you will get the hang of it with time and practice. So don't quit and don't be demotivated just that you can't, it's just not making sense, because as time goes on, you will figure out what works with you and it will make sense. So just keep telling yourself that it will get better. Now, tip or thing that I wish I knew number 2 is that you will stop. And I know that sounds pretty depressing. You will stop. What does that even mean? It's exactly what it sounds like. You will stop learning. I've been self-studying for 3 years or so, but I haven't actually really studied like in a textbook, well, for the majority of that time. It's only been like the past year or so that I've actually been studying. So what happened was I got really motivated when I was first deciding to learn. And so I bought some textbooks. I was like, yeah, let's do it. I got a few chapters in and then I just stopped. It's gonna happen. And the reason is because that initial burst of motivation that you had is gone. And it sucks because, you're like, oh man, I just spent money on some textbooks. I wanna learn, but I just don't have that motivation. And that brings us to tip number 3 is have motivation. It's very hard to learn a language if you don't have any motivation. And motivation as in you actually want to learn, not just like, oh man, I like anime, I'm gonna go ahead and watch it, or I'm gonna go ahead and learn the language so that way I can watch anime. Now, there's a caveat to that. If that is your true motivation and that works with you, then perfect. Everyone's motivation is going to be something different. For me, that was, I don't know, that may have been my initial motivation was, oh man, it's just cool. Like I want to learn a language, I'll watch anime, it'll be good. So that may have been my initial motivation, which is why it quickly died out, because I found that my motivation to watch anime was greater than my motivation to learn or to watch anime without subtitles. It's much more work to learn Japanese to watch anime than it is to just watch anime with subtitles. You see what I'm getting at? So you need some sort of motivation that is higher in regards to, well, in my case, watching anime, my initial motivation. Because what you'll find is your initial motivation is not always the motivation that keeps you going. So if my initial motivation was to watch anime without subtitles, my motivation to watch anime in itself was higher than to study Japanese, which is why I had stopped initially. And by the way, going back to the second point, there was many times that I stopped and started and stopped and started using many different resources too. Like I found online guides. I used obviously Genki. I started, or well, I don't know if I necessarily started, but I tried using Japanese from zero. So I've tried many different methods. And what I've found is that it doesn't really matter what method you use as long as it works with you and you have motivation. Any method will work. Regardless of what textbook you get, if it's a beginner level textbook and you can vibe with it, it's all about motivation at that point. Most beginner textbooks are gonna be fine. It's that motivation that's gonna keep you going. Now, like I said with the motivation, that motivation for people is gonna be completely different. Like, some people it may just be anime, and that's fantastic. If that's all the motivation you need, then more power to you. You're lucky, you're one of the lucky ones. If you make friends and you want to be able to talk with them, or, you have a significant other that you want to get to know their language, or you're actually living in Japan for work, those are all great motivations because you actually have to use them, or you have a proper motivation to do it. And the motivation that ended up working with me is having a friend. I have a friend that I study with, and it's great because I know that each week we're going to be practicing, and if I don't study, I'm going to be behind. And it's gonna suck. So that's my motivation, which may sound like a bad motivation, but I know that this is what I wanna do. I'm going to college for it. So I know it is what I wanna do, but oftentimes for me specifically, I hate doing work, like schoolwork and stuff like that. So I hate doing textbooks, but I know that's what you gotta do. And so it's just really hard for me to find good motivation, and having somebody to help me, I guess, keep a clear mind to know that I have to do this each week is a great motivation for me to actually keep going. So that's my motivation. And, it took me a while to find the friend that would help me, which is why I started and stopped. But you just have to find that motivation. And sometimes, you may know that you definitely want to learn Japanese, but you just don't know what exactly your motivation is. And you'll just have to wait and find that motivation, do some soul searching, things like that. So that is my third tip. Make sure you have motivation. Otherwise, you're just gonna be in an endless cycle of starting and stopping. Now, I know that may sound very harsh, but that's just the cruel reality of it. Learning a language is very hard. And if you don't have proper motivation, you're just gonna quit. And so my goal in telling you that, you will probably lose that initial motivation is to hopefully inspire you to, go out and learn more about it, because you may enjoy watching YouTube videos about it. And then if you learn more about it, maybe you want to live there someday, and maybe that's your motivation instead of just initially watching anime and wanting to learn subtitles or learn how to read it without subtitles, or watch it without subtitles. So yes, it is harsh reality stuff, but I hope that getting you prepared in that mental state that, hey, my motivation's kind of wavering, it's a sign that you need to find some new motivation, or maybe just take a break for a little while until you get more motivation, or whatever works with you. Just make sure that you have good motivation. I know that's very helpful, but it's really different for everybody. And I hope that, if you know that this is what you want to do and maybe you're wavering a little bit, that I sincerely hope that you find something that helps you on the right path, because it really is a lot of fun. I know I've said I don't like school type work, and that's exactly what a textbook is, but deep down I know I really enjoy it. And so you just have to find that right motivation. All right, tip number 4 is learn kanji early, sort of a different turn from my usual ones. Guys, I kind of screwed myself over, right? Because I just finished Genki 2. Okay, I just finished this a few weeks ago. So I'm about to start Tobita. Problem is, I didn't learn any kanji. I started Wanikani like a few months ago because I was like, oh shoot. Because when I found Tobita, I was like, oh, this is very common for people, but they say you need to learn kanji. You need to have kanji background. And I have no kanji background. So that's why I started Wanikani. And I kind of screwed myself over, right? So learn kanji early on. Don't do the same mistake I did. Because now I'm trying to rush to learn kanji so that way I can get into Tobita. Guys, if you're doing Genki, follow along with Genki's kanji. Because Tobita is mostly all of Genki's kanji plus a few extra ones which they have on their website and stuff like that. If you're doing Wanikani, great. From my research, Wanikani, you need to at least be like level 20 until you have like at least some sort of general knowledge of what's going on in the Tobita textbook. And then, you know, a lot of people said like level 30 is when they started and they were fine. And it takes about a week to get through levels if you're trying to speedrun it. So that's like 30 weeks of Wanikani. That's over half a year, guys. So learn kanji early. Don't screw yourself over like I did, okay? Take it from me. And I mean, I guess this isn't as applicable if you're like, I just want to learn some basics, right? I'm not really looking to go into an intermediate textbook after Genki. Then I could see maybe why you wouldn't necessarily want to do kanji. But if you're serious about this, you got to learn kanji, at least how to, recognize it and read it. So do it early on. Don't do what I did. All right, tip number 5 is to set habits. It helps a lot, guys. I'm just going to say it right now. It helps a lot to have a habit. That way, if your motivation is wavering, because I know mine wavers all the freaking time, because it's like, oh man, I'd rather watch anime than, get out a textbook, right? It's just life, guys, okay? We don't like doing hard things. So the benefit of setting habits is you train your body and brain to realize, okay, I need to do this thing. And then you're not going to be able to do anything else until you do that thing. So one of my habits that I've set, and I set this like years ago when I first started. This is the one thing that I've stayed consistent with throughout my entire learning career when I started like 3 or 4 years ago. When I wake up, I do my Anki sets. That's just my habit. And so I've done that and it's worked pretty well because now as soon as I wake up, I'm like, all right, time to start Anki. And so then, I don't forget it later in the day. I'm not like, I just won't do it. Because I can't start the day without doing my Anki set, because that's just the habit I've set for myself, right? I'll be honest, I haven't really set any other habits aside from that, which I need to do because they are very helpful. But just trust me, guys. Set some habits, whether that's Anki, using Anki at a specific time, doing worksheets on specific days of the week, doing so many chapters a week, right? Because I know my friend and I, we were doing 1 chapter of Genki a week. So that was a habit that we had set. We knew that we were doing work each week and that we had to do the worksheets for that chapter and stuff like that. In hindsight, we were probably going too fast, but it's whatever. So just set habits for yourself because it'll get yourself used to doing it. And that'll help on the motivation factor because you're like, all right, this is just my life now. You're used to it. It's not going to feel as much like work. It feels more like your life and that's just what you're doing. So that's another goal, or I guess goal for me, to set more habits. So yeah, that's tip number 5. All right, tip number 6. This is the last tip. Actually use the dang language, okay? You're learning it for a reason. And let me tell you, watching anime is not a good way. I know some people are like, oh yes, this is a good way, haha, but no, it's actually not, at least not for me. Because sure, while I'm watching, I can pick apart a few lines, and as I've progressed through Genki, it's gotten considerably better. But it's not, unless if you're some sort of genius, it's not gonna be instant. You're gonna slowly realize that you can understand a little bit, but you're not going to be able to understand the majority of an episode because there's either too much vocab that you don't know, or there's, maybe you can identify like, oh, they just said dog here, but you have no idea what else they're saying because you can't hear it, or there's different ways that they can say it. Like maybe, it's shonen and, they're speaking in a way that they typically don't speak, things like that. So it's just not a very good way. Now, what is a good way is if you have a specific scene and you're taking that scene and you're breaking it down sentence by sentence, line by line, I guess that's the same thing, word by word. That is a very good way to study. And that's what a friend and I have been doing is, we take scenes that are relatively easy that we can understand like a good chunk of what's going on. We break it down and then we realize that, hey, we can actually understand a good chunk of this if we break it down, but as a big whole, either we were too focused on actually watching the show instead of, trying to study or things like that. So just passively watching an anime is not going to do you any good. You actually have to go out and do some work related to it. And, for me, that was, taking a specific scene, breaking it down. That was a good way to study. Another thing that you could do is watch VTubers. That's good because, more specifically, because it doesn't have subtitles, right? So you could do that. I watch some clips, which are obviously subtitles, but I don't do that to study. I do that more for entertainment. But if you want, I think a good way, like I said, is to, and don't overwhelm yourself, right? If you want to go into a VTuber stream, that's good, but it's not going to be nearly as much help as if you take a specific scene, break it down word for word. That is really where the good practice comes in. And that really applies with anything, like songs. You could do that with songs. Songs are a little bit difficult because, they use more slang to make it sound better. So songs are good, but not probably ideal. Anime clips, YouTuber clips, like radios or whatever. That's really a good way to practice because if you're interested in the anime or the VTuber, then you have more motivation to actually do it. It's not just some random clip that was assigned to you for homework, right? So you're doing that, you get to understand it, you get a connection between you and that VTuber or that anime that you're watching. So that's really the best way for me to, if you're wanting to get it from media, to actually use the language, right? Another thing that you can do is talk with friends. If you have friends who are either learning it with you or, you found some foreign friends that already know the language or whatever, that's also really good practice. You can be like, hey, yo, can we, have a practice conversation or, do this, have some fun with it. Point is, use the language. Don't just be like, hey, I know this. Now I'm going to go turn on my anime with subtitles because that doesn't really help, guys. Trust me, it doesn't help. You'll identify a few words. At least me. I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid, but like, it doesn't actually help all that much for me. So the way you apply that is taking clips, breaking down those clips. That's truly what helps. So just use the language, because if you're not using it, why are you learning it, right? You may say like, oh, I'm learning it because I want to live in Japan one day. Again, you're going to be behind if you're not like actually using the language, right? Another good way, I guess, is to read some articles too. There's a good app on the App Store called like Today Japanese or Tadai or something like that. It's very good because it has articles and they have also audio clips so you can listen to it. And you're just translating the articles, and they have articles based on your skill level. So it's a really good app that I'd recommend getting into. I have it. I haven't started it yet. I need to. I've looked at it a few times and done it a few times and it's helped, but I need to set a habit to get on that every day. So I suppose this video is also aimed towards me as somebody who needs to start doing more practice. So I know you guys are like, why should I listen to this guy if he's not even following his own tips? Because I know what the tips are, I'm just not applying the tips, and I'm suffering because of that. So yes, so actually use the language. It's going to help in the long run. So yes, those have been my 6 tips. If they're not just a complete carbon copy of what somebody else said, please let me know down in the comments below, because I don't know. I'm sure someone's probably said at least one of these in every single one of their videos, but you know, this is just what I've found from my own personal advice, that if I could go back and tell myself stuff, that's what I would tell myself. Especially the kanji one, guys. Start kanji early. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I screwed myself over so hard with that. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy, you can leave a like and subscribe for more content similar to this, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.